Hi, this is Charles Kelly. How are you doing today? It's a beautiful day here in London, and we have other announcements regarding the lockdown, etc. But otherwise, business is going on as usual at the moment. Now, the average millionaire is not a celebrity, a sports star, or someone you might see on TV. They are, in fact, well, let me think about this. The profile of the average millionaire next door may surprise you. I've actually written about this in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. But according to research for the best-selling book, which is an amazing book from 1996 called The Secrets of the Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, the average millionaire is unlikely to be your favourite sports star, celebrity. They probably don't drive the most expensive car and eat in fine, pricey restaurants and fine dining restaurants. They probably lead what you might consider a modest lifestyle. They're quite frugal with their money. They're quite careful, and you might not even know that they are a millionaire. It doesn't mean to say they're driving around in an old banger, but you might not even be aware that this person is a millionaire because there's not the flashy kind of image you see. Now, when I see a Rolls Royce in London, if I'm walking along, I just have a look. Somebody I might know. There might be a celebrity there. It could be Simon Cowell or somebody like that. But actually, it invariably isn't. And in all the years that I've sort of had a glance inside a Rolls Royce, I've only ever seen one celebrity, one person from the TV, a TV star. And you know who that person is? Bruce Forsyth. Yeah. My love. And he looked out. He wasn't actually he was in the front, but not in the driving seat. And I'm standing next to the shop. I sort of looked over and kind of caught his eye for a second and expected him to go, "Right, my love, nice to see you, nice." In fact, he didn't. He looked at me. He just looked away, kind of like, didn't raise his eyebrows, but he sort of looked up and thought, "Who are you?" And looked ahead. And he looked a bit miserable, actually. Nothing like you'd expect to see on TV. He didn't even give me a wave or anything. So I'm telling that story that that was years and years and years ago, and it was in Knightsbridge, and that's the only time I've seen. And all the other people have been business people. Well, I think they've been just people that have got money, but they're not necessarily people that are on TV or sports stars, etc. Now, according to the research for this book. Here is the profile of the average millionaire next door. These are people that you might not expect to be a millionaire, but they are the people that have become millionaires. Now, first of all, they're most likely to be a business owner. They're most likely to be a person that has their own business. They're usually married with a stable family life. Well, if you get divorced, there's half your fortune gone already. So they're more likely to have and it's not only about divorce, it's about having a stable family life, living in a good neighbourhood, but not necessarily with the biggest, flashiest house, but they'll tend to pick a good neighbourhood and stay there. And this is where they'll be spending most of their time with their family. And I know several people like this that are actually multimillionaires, and yeah, they live in a great house, and they'll have a good car, but they might keep that car for 10 or 15 years. I know one guy that kept his Mercedes for as long as I've known him. Maybe he's had that 20 years and he just kept running it, but he's bought a good quality car and kept it rather than keep changing his cars to the latest Ford Granada or Ford Fiesta or whatever every year. They just keep, they buy a quality car and keep it. And, if you look at what he does with his social life, most of his social life revolves around his family. In fact, it used to be his children, now it's also his grandchildren. And most of the time, I remember once him saying to me, he said, "Yeah, I don't need a lot of friends. I've got my family." And he wasn't being rude or anything, but he said, "I don't need to go out and go here, there, and everywhere. I've got my family." And that's what he enjoys doing, and that's what that is. He is the profile of this book. Okay, now does this mean that you have to spend 30 or 40 years grinding away to build up a business in order to be wealthy or financially free? Well, the answer is of course not. There are there are lots of ways of becoming wealthy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be grinding away at a business, working day and night. Now, I've done that, and it is hard work. Now, I know people who, despite sort of slaving away in the small business for most of their lives, they're still struggling. In other words, they're not desperately poor, but they're still struggling to make ends meet. If a crisis comes along like this like a coronavirus, or if something happens, or if there's a downturn in the market, they're really in difficulty. And and of course, in some cases, these people's businesses have been wiped out by some new technology or a change in the market, and they haven't kept up with it. It's very hard for small business. I know a guy that had a franchise for car repairs, and he was given these areas. Here's your area. We'll give this area to you, and he was doing okay. And then they offered him another area, and he spent about another 15,000-20,000 buying that area, and then it was more difficult. Then he was running around chasing his tail. But the long and the short of it, the franchise company eventually phased him out. They took their money, but eventually they made it more and more difficult for them until it just wasn't worth it. He just went to running, doing his own thing. Now he's still, out there day and night under cars, struggling and working very, very hard. And I wouldn't like to do what he's doing. And I know lots of people. I know shop owners. I know people that work 7 days a week in a shop or 6 days a week in a shop, and they're doing okay. They're doing better than the average person, but they're not doing that much better. In some ways, some of these people might just be better off earning 40,000 a year driving a bus, or 50,000 a year driving a train on the London Underground, or just doing a job. Because when you work out all the hours they're putting in, are they really making that much per hour? Now, on the other hand, I also know people who've used leverage and smart strategies to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions, from businesses. And some of them made billions from businesses without all the time and effort of working in the business. They've worked on the business, but they're not in the business. And there are lots of people like that. Richard Branson is one of them. In fact, Richard Branson uses leverage all the time to buy businesses. And you see him sitting on his island. He doesn't look like he's working that hard, does he? He's not sweating, is he? Now, would you like to know how these people do these things? Now, let me ask you a question. I mean, it's about your mindset, really. It's about what you really believe is possible and what you believe is true. Now, I'll ask you one thing here. Can you buy a business that was worth 90 million for 3.4 million while still helping 800 people? Can you do that? Now, if I say that to you, can you buy a business that was not long ago worth 90 million for 3.4 million and keep 800 people in their job? Well, if you've sort of said, well, that's rubbish, well, it's not. And this is where you've got to change your way of thinking. I mean, can you buy a business for £1 that was worth millions? Yes. People are buying businesses for £1 all the time. They're buying businesses for a song. These things happen all the time. Now, you've got to believe, but look, I'm not going to give you an old example of Richard Branson using other people's money to buy airlines and that sort of thing, but I'm going to give you a recent example. On the 22nd of last month, 22nd of May, a deal was announced by the owners of Giraffe Restaurant and Ed Diner chain, Ed's Diners, to buy Carlitos for 3.4 million. Now, I mentioned about a month or two ago on one of my podcasts that Carlitos was in administration, and I've mentioned several other businesses that are in administration. Now, this business was previously bought by the current owners or the previous owners for 90 million 2 years ago. Right, 2 years ago they paid 90 million for this chain, and now it's been bought at, was it 4% on the pound or something? It's crazy. But what they've done by buying this business rather than just letting it completely go to the wall is, they'll save the restaurant chain. They probably won't keep every branch open, and they will keep 800 jobs going and probably rebuild that business, and maybe in a few years' time sell it for 90 million, because when it will be worth 90 million. And we know that global debt is soaring to levels that we've never seen before. We know that there's problems, and but it's not just about the coronavirus. There'll always be problems in business. There'll always be businesses that go up like this and maybe get into trouble. They borrow too much money, or they're not running it very well, and it goes downhill, and somebody else picks up that business. This is happening all the time, but it's happening even more now with the obvious crisis that's going on. So what I can see now is that many businesses will not be able to sustain their operations they need, and maybe the debt that they've got, and this is what you've got to look at if you're buying shares on the stock market. You've got to look at the company's debt. What is their debt? We've seen this with airlines. We've seen Delta Airlines recently going back to renegotiate their debt with bondholders. So we're going to see this with big and small businesses, and this is where I think that if the new owners, if they can't maintain their business, then new owners will be able to help pivot the business and turn it around. And these smart buyers can snatch up opportunities to build substantial wealth, just like this deal for the owners of the Giraffe. And they'll do that in like a fraction of the time it takes somebody to build and grow a business and run a business for 20 or 30 years in order to become a millionaire. They'll become millionaires overnight. And this is just one example. There's been many, many examples where people have made tens of millions with the business that they bought for a song, for maybe even £1, and just to secure the deal. So this is what I think you're going to see. And so bearing that in mind, what would you prefer to be doing? Would you prefer to sort of build a business organically and run it for all these years? Or would you prefer to look into how you could buy businesses and turn them around and do this using little or none of your own money? Now, I know I would prefer which I'd prefer to do, because I've run businesses and I know it's very, very hard work. And although I've made money, I think, my God, sometimes I thought, what am I doing here? I'm working 7 days a week. It's just crazy, and you can never get away from it. So you've got to look at why some people will just have one shop, and why others will build a chain of shops and a chain of wholesalers and sell it off for millions. So now, one person who's made a fortune buying and selling businesses using little or none of her own money is an entrepreneur called Bingbing Chen. Now, Bingbing is hosting a brand new web class tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and you can be one of the first to learn these strategies that has been used by many, many people. And in fact, most of the successful business transactions are using these techniques to buy a business using none of their own money. Now, what I'm saying is, you don't need to have £3 million in your pocket to go out and buy a business. You don't need to have millions. You don't need to have tens of thousands even. There are deals out there. If you know where to look for them, you know how to do them, you can acquire businesses at very little of your own money. Okay, now Bingbing will host this web class tomorrow night. She'll teach you the step-by-step processes, how you can secure high-quality businesses for little or even none of your own money. And all of those things you can find out tomorrow. You don't have to leave your home. You can watch it on a live web class. And I think you'll be able to learn something. That's just tomorrow night. So, you'll learn things like how to equip yourself with the knowledge you need to buy a business, how to build relationships with brokers, identify potential targets, and start posting, putting your name out there for these businesses, and even start raising funds, and how to talk to potential investors and JV partners. So this will put you, way ahead of the competition, and this is really about finding out how you can get the right mindset to do this, because you've got to believe that this can be done before you even go out and start trying to buy a business from, for £1 and that sort of thing. So I think, you've got nothing to lose here. It's crazy. I'll certainly be watching this myself tomorrow night, 7:30. I'm going to put a link up on my Facebook page very shortly. So if you're interested in that, click on the link and just register for it, because I think it'll be very, very useful. I'm certainly looking forward to it to myself. And we're in a climate at the moment when things are very uncertain. Things have changed, and I think many things will never go back to the same as they were. And I really fear for some of these businesses out there. I really do fear for some of these businesses that I can't see coming back in the form that they're in. And yet somebody will be able to buy those business assets. Somebody may be buying those companies, and someone will make a lot of money turning them around again. Believe me, these things happen all the time. I've just given you one example. There are many, many examples of how this is done. So have a look at the link, and if you're interested in business but not interested in running a business, just check that out. Check out that webinar. So thanks for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks also to Gary watching there, and Stanley, great to see you, and I will obviously hopefully see you again, and I do welcome your comments on there. I'd love to see your comments, and for anybody on Facebook, if you want to leave a comment on my Facebook page, please do. Also, feel free to check out my book sometime, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. I'll go through many other money-making examples on that as well. So last thing, speak to you again soon. Check out that webinar and learn how to buy a business using none of your own money. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.